afternoon, everybody. I'm Rick Wilson. I'm the director of Scientia, and I'd like to thank you for attending today's lecture. This year's series is, as many of you know, is on creativity, and while people in various disciplines at Rice differ in the questions we ask and the methods we use, what reunites us, I hope, is the creativity that we bring to our work. This year's Scientia is calling on people both inside and outside of Rice to talk about how their imagination works to tackle interesting questions and pose novel ideas. Today, we are particularly fortunate to have Richard Knight speaking to us on the topic of food, art, and the Banksy shredder. Unfortunately, Richard has not brought us food that he's prepared today. Fortunately, he is shortly opening a new restaurant, the Atlas Diner at the Bravery in Chef's Hall, which I'm sure we have cards here that will tell you where to go to find him.
Compulsory to take one on the way out.
Exactly. We'll force you to. Richard Knight has been involved in the food scene since he took on a job as a dishwasher at the tender age of 16 in the southwest part of England. And while in England, he moved up through the ranks, eventually turning around, I understand, a failing seafood restaurant in St. Ives, Cornwall. And it was there that I guess you began focusing your efforts on the use of local ingredients as an integral part of the restaurant. In 1998, Houston was lucky enough to attract Richard. He became head chef at Chevron Texaco building in downtown. And then together with his longtime friend James Silk, opened Taverna. And in 2008, Richard and James opened the restaurant called Feast, a well-known nose-to-tail restaurant that was perhaps a bit ahead of its time for the Houston restaurant scene. For those of you who are unfortunate enough to have never tried his deviled bones, you do not know what you've missed.
I have some in the back, actually.
Oh, no, I have some in the back.
I used to take them home all the time. I used to just eat them at home.
They're tremendous.
Yes.
Recently, Richard was head chef at the Hunky Dory Tavern in the Heights, and as I mentioned, he's opening his latest endeavor in the Atlas Diner. So Richard's lecture is about the creative interplay of food and art. He and his wife Carrie have produced a delightful comedy cooking show called Show Us Your Goods that may come into production soon, in which they turn the table on the farm-to-table movement by showcasing producers of food. Richard has been a James Beard Award semi-finalist, and the restaurants where he's been chef have received numerous accolades. Any of you who've ever been fortunate enough to eat at one of his restaurants will know the accolades are well deserved. So it is my pleasure to get off the stage and give it over to Richard. Thank you, Richard.
All right. Well, see my beautiful, elegant chicken right there. Welcome. Nice to see you all. My journey started, as he said, many, many years ago as a dishwasher. It was my first job. You know, I never had a job, never done anything, just in front of the TV, basically. And my mother was like, okay, you need to go do this. And I'm like, okay, yeah, it's like a lot of hard work. So I went to this restaurant, crazy lunacy. I mean, just like, it was a busy restaurant. It was a little bistro in the southwest of England. And it was just lunatic. I just, you know, just things flying past my face, just people being like maniacs, you know, drug addicts. I mean, just, it was just, you know, everybody was just like totally off their head in some way, shape or form. And me as like, you know, I was like 14, 15 at that point. I was just like, what is this? What is going on here? What is this thing? This is a job, really. This is, it completely blew my mind in so many ways of, like, what is this thing? And what are these people doing? They're all so insane. They're all so, you know, and it's a definite venture into, you know, another subculture. I mean, actually, Bourdain, you know, all the things he said were true. I mean, the lunacy of the restaurant world is notorious, and it, you know, I think it's a little better than it used to be, but it's still pretty much out there. So yeah, I'm just going to talk a little bit about, you know, where I came from and kind of how the way I see food and how I've sort of taking it apart, and being given this sort of lecture made me think a lot about, you know, what is it all about? And there is obviously so many elements to food, so many different directions, and it's such a nutso job. So anyway, I'll give you a quick rundown of my very quick background. Yes, I grew up in the southwest of England, in a little place called St Ives in Cornwall. There I took over a failing sort of seafood restaurant, and I got all the freshest fish in the universe. There was a giant Brixham fish port was down the road, and so basically I got all this crazy fish that I'd never even seen before or even heard of. And people were bringing this stuff in all the time, and I was like, what? I'm a chef. I've been a chef for a few years. What is this? What is this thing? You know. But these people started bringing in what they call now is like bycatch. So basically, fish that are unusual, fish that come up literally when they're fishing for one thing, comes up in the net. There's a load of obviously, you know, load of other fish just in there by accident, get caught up in it. And so I started like experimenting with all these crazy weird fish, and it really made me think about all the things I'd been missing all these years. And although the nose to tail movement was just sort of starting in England with Mr. Fergus Henderson at that point, you know, I still wasn't, my eyes weren't totally open to the history and the whole, where the food comes from and the cycles and, you know, where it's going next and the trends. And so anyway, that restaurant really opened my eyes up to that quite a bit. A few years later, after having my kids, I came to the new world, America, and Feast was my big restaurant, and Feast was a labor of love. It was a creaky, you've not been there, it's a creaky little old house on Westheimer, you know, creaky floorboards and like, you know, very rustic and, you know, stained glass windows, and it was just tiny and weird. We used to play weird music, and we used to do weird food, and weird as in good weird, I hope. We were very much interested in the history of food and bringing a lot of old traditional recipes, which really excited us, to getting a little bit of a new spin on them, mainly because in those days, obviously, again, it's a matter of history and geography. Certain things in the food world happened at certain times. So they found a new country, well, woo, we got, you know, cinnamon this week, or, you know, we got potatoes next week because they found this, or they've taken it from another tribe or something. So the history of food was ever evolving and way back then, and you see it in these old, we've got a load of wonderful old cookbooks. And it's just amazing to see as the world opened up and people started traveling, and the boats started going across the seas, and then, well, how did they store their food, and how did they preserve their food? And this is where all that came from. It's where port wine comes from, and a lot of things that are smoked or salted or brined, because sailors had to sail halfway around the bloody world, you know, and get back again alive, hopefully. So that stuff really started to pique my interest, and so me and my friend James, when we opened Feast, we really wanted to bring, I suppose it's, you know, to a certain extent, English comfort food. And yes, we were doing, you know, noses and ears and feet and, you know, organs and all that fun stuff, which for Americans is a little bit unusual, especially here in Texas when we started. But it was very much, it was kind of a mission to us in some ways to try to get this across to people, that this is not weird in most of the rest of the world, because literally, you know, obviously South America and Asia and most of the rest of the world have been eating these bits and still do now, you know, the more unusual parts. And so it's our mission to try to bring that to Houston and really try and open people's noses and mouths, I suppose, also, and to get them aware that this is good food and not to go, that's horrible, you know. We did get a lot of that, but, you know, we tried our best. So that was our mission at Feast, to really try and push the envelope, but not in a completely theatrical way that we just did it for theatrics. I mean, yes, we did some crazy stuff, which I'll talk a little bit about later, but it, you know, the food was good, we hoped, and it was solid, and it was comforting, but unusual, and pushed people's boundaries a little bit. So that was our big mission there. Just talk a little bit about this guy. He's very cute. I got to build a dough man. I did that for my daughter. Anyway, I was a dough man. Art comes in and threads in and out of food the whole time. And, you know, there's so many chefs out there that have very different ways of thinking about food. I mean, some people it's just a job, some people it's an art form, some people it's, you know, it's just something that builds their soul, making people happy. You know, it's so many things to so many people that the more I looked at it, the more I sort of like took it apart in my head and started thinking about what is this lunatic thing of food. You know, you're a chef and you're the man and you're like, and you make this thing, you spend all this time, energy and learning, and then you come up with something, you make it with all the most love and tenderness that this is this perfect being, this baby you're pushing out into the world. That's your dish, and you go, you know, every dish you should, and you know, you should be proud of, obviously. And that's what you do, so every damn dish that you're making needs to be perfect and great, and on the spot, and absolutely, you know, perfection. So you put that out there, and then people just destroy it. That's what they do, they eat it. It's not like, you know, it's not like a, you know, even a work of art, you know, people put it on the wall and they love it and they look at it and they think how lovely that is and all that good stuff. But food, all you do is you just make it to be destroyed. So it's a very, very weird, that's why I sort of got on the whole like Banksy shredder kind of like lunacy of all that sort of stuff that he was doing there and trying to make a point. But yeah, I mean, in the way it's structured, it's getting better. But basically, you know, chefs and restaurant people, the environment, I don't know, you know, it's very interesting. I don't quite know how it will develop, but literally, you know, there are a load of drunk pirates. I mean, it's pretty much where the chef world is. And it's this crazy lunacy, and I really thought about it long and hard, and I was like, well, what's it like? What is this crazy, crazy thing? It's like 0 to 60, and then the opposite down the other side. I mean, you're prepping for, you know, dinner on a Friday night, you're doing your stuff, you've been working all day, and then literally what we call, you know, you go into battle. So off you go, like, you know, you've got 80,000 orders and their tickets are coming, and everybody's just like pumping on all cylinders. And it's this weird thing if you just like, if you're in a hopefully busy restaurant, it's just you're hanging on. This is what you do. You hang on. Everybody's like hanging on. Hopefully being able to just like hang on, produce their food, get it out in a timely manner, give customers a good experience, and best food they've ever had, and make the bosses happy, and make the money, and keep clean, and all that stuff. And it's just this complete like whirlwind thing. And then you're like, and then boom, you close the restaurant. It slows down, or you know, and then you close. And so, you know, it's like everybody's just like, because that's what they've been doing the last 4 hours, completely balls to the walls, excuse my French, and, you know. So, and then you come down the other side, and then it's like, well, you know, you're all running around, and you're like, what do you do? So, obviously, you go to the bar with your mates. Obviously, you stay up all night, get pretty much drunk, and then you sort of go to bed too early, wake up the next morning, and then you just do it again. This is kind of the chef life that it is. It's so much lunacy on so many levels. And yes, and getting back to the sort of the creative side of things and the way people just, it's not like any other job, and it's just like, well, opening a restaurant, isn't that just so insane? It's just like, as I always say to people, it's just like, it's not like opening a bookstore, you know. A bookstore, well, you know, it's probably more difficult than I think it is, and probably so. But literally, you know, you get your books and you get your stuff and you do your POS and your this, that, and your shelves. Woo. Restaurant, you know, you've got like so many things about food and like paper goods and POS and stuff and like permits and this and that and other. It's such a lunatic equation, and you know, it's probably safer to go to like Las Vegas, throw your money down on black and just run with that than it is to open a restaurant. Everybody seems to think that sort of we're all running around in like, you know, Teslas and Bentleys and you know, living the life of glorious celebrity big chefs in our restaurant lives, and we're making so much money and all that. It's a very hard life, and there's such a small margin to make it, you know, big in the big leagues. Which brings me to sort of the celebrity chef game. Obviously, you know, 100 years ago, look at those drunk guys. Woo! It's me and my wife, actually. Drunk players, rock and roll. Alas, poor Yorick, I knew him well. I used to work for a butcher shop back at Ranch, and this guy didn't make it, I'm correct. But yeah, my daughter was some goats feeding out of a beer bottle. Very rustic. I like that a lot. Here's my famous picture that was actually taken in the meat locker at Black Hill Ranch. This is actually on the wall of Underbelly. He does me a little homage, which is kind of nice as a fellowship. But in the old days, obviously the old chefs, the Carêmes and like, you know, the great, the Escoffiers of the world, I mean, they were like rock stars in their world. In their time, it was like, you know, they were the dudes. But they sort of, you know, they worked for like royalty and like things like that's what you did as a really big name chef. And these guys, you know, obviously did some amazing stuff for organizing and arranging and making the chef world that it is today. And they were definitely, you know, absolutely the rock stars then. And now we've got this whole weird thing of that whole celebrity chef-orama, which we all know about from our TVs and all that fun stuff, which is a whole new weird thing. It's developed, oh, my mic went up, sorry. It's developed into this very strange beast, and I think hopefully coming down the other side a little bit from it now, of it went kind of nuts like 10 years ago when the whole reality thing came and it surged, and suddenly chefs were like, you know, they were gods. Everybody loved them. They wanted, you know, everybody couldn't get enough of chefs, whether that's on a TV scale or even on a local level. They suddenly came to this elevated thing, which was a bit bizarre, but kind of cool at the time. You know, I kind of enjoyed it from there for a minute. And this thing just sort of had a strange backlash, I think, in some ways, because, and then, well, don't get me started on the whole, like, mixologist, which are like, you know, glorified barmen in funny outfits and waxed moustaches, but I think is very much the same happened with that as it did with the chef world, where suddenly the chef and the mixologist were more important than the custom. That's what happened. It happened, yeah, you could see it coming, like, as I say, probably 10 years when this whole reality TV chefs of gods thing. And, you know, it's just like, it's coming down the other side now, hopefully, but it's just, we're a customer, you know, a service industry. We're here to serve people, we're here to make people happy. And now the chef just thinks to himself, God, you know, or I go into the bar and I can't get a drink for 20 minutes because the guy's like, ignoring me and doing these little twizzle things and all that. So it's like, hello, you know, that stuff just drives me nuts. But I think the chefs are coming back over the other side now and just getting a bit of a grip on, you know, on life. And basically, you know, it's been a very rough ride for restaurants in the last 3 or 4 years, probably. Due to many things, due to people, again, I think it was riding off that wave of chefs and restaurants and exploding, and especially in Houston, we had a big explosion. And then I think also with the oil crash that we had here, you know, and nationally, things sort of fell off, and obviously a lot of chefs and restaurateurs overdid it and overspent and thought, oh, 8 restaurants would be great, you know, why don't we do that? That's a great idea. So a lot of people got caught short on that. And, you know, again, I think people are taking a step back again. I'm a great friend and admirers of Hugo and Tracy, who have Hugo's and Caracol and those restaurants in town. Really hard-working, humble people. You know, humble chef, one of the humblest chefs I know. He's a James Beard, you know, guy now. He's won the award. He has many restaurants, and they all run really, really well. And Tracy does the front of house, and she, you know, cracks the whip, and she's like, you know, she realizes that every customer actually counts. Whereas I say, it's gone a little bit the other way, you know, the last few years. And now we're having to, as chefs and restaurateurs, it's really buckle down and calm the funk down and just like, you know, do our job and, you know, shut up. You're not a god. You know, you're doing a job like everybody else. It's got way out of control. And what is this, you know, the fascination thing with food? And I think obviously the whole media thing, and obviously phones with cameras on, and you know, Instagram, and this. So there's another amazing, crazy lore thing that food has suddenly become. You know, when you go to a restaurant, every second of the day, people are like, yeah. Actually, I saw a guy doing it in Chili's the other day. That was quite amusing. He really got into it, but you know, it's all good. But yeah, I mean, that's another thing that's just made this food thing just like a little bigger than its boots. It really has. And again, hopefully, coming back to ground zero a little bit on that, which is great. Anyway, a few more silly photos while we're here. Nice tomato. What tomato? Boom. Fuel or art or something else. Food is, yeah, food is food. Food is a fuel for our bodies. It's got so many things going on. The big thing for me when I was thinking about all this was what it does. We had a relief kitchen. I'd made a go at relief kitchen, me and my wife, during Harvey, and fed many hundreds of thousands of people. And it was incredible what food did. And it was incredible just to see the joy on people's faces just by getting some hot food. Didn't matter what, could have been anything. You know, some of them just ate a peanut butter sandwich and they would cry. You know, it was heartbreaking. It really, really was. But it just brought home to me the power of food and the power of comfort and the power of that normality in the chaos. So just giving them that food, they were just like, oh my God, you know, this just made my week. You know, it was a strange thing to see, taking what I do on a daily basis, which is hopefully make people happy with what I do in producing food, but to give it to those guys who really, really just like were like, this is, you know, you've blown my mind, you've made my year, thank you so much for this. You know, whether it was a bowl of spaghetti, they were just like so overjoyed with it. And another part of that is, you know, it is that community thing, and it's the breaking bread thing, and it's people sitting down and people talking and eating and drinking too much, probably. It's putting cell phones in a basket. You know, it's all that food. It brings people together in so many ways, and it's like an international language in some ways. You know, you can break bread with anybody. You don't even have to talk. You can just do the thing, and you know, it bridges so many things. It brings families together, because that's what you used to do in the old days before the wonderful world of cell phones. You sit down and you help prepare the meal. The kids would help, the family would help. Everybody sit down, we'd all talk to each other and get into arguments and do fun things like that. And then, you know, people would clean up, and it's like a family deal. Again, it's breaking bread. The food brings people together on that level too. Love and dating, that got me thinking too. So thinking like, you know, the whole dating thing, so it's like, well, what do? You go on a date, you go have dinner, you go have lunch, you go have coffee. Again, the food has brought people together. So probably most people in the world have just like, food has done something in that world for them. And perhaps that's the way they met their husband or their wife or something like that. But it's very much intertwined in all of that stuff. We'll move on a little bit. Oh yes, I talked a little bit about this already. I call this tweezers, tweed and twits. If you're not an English person or you don't know too many English people, a twit is just a bit of an idiot, shall we say, a silly person. So talk a little bit about how the mixologists really got way too down the road, and then we get on to this kind of stuff, which for me is just like the Antichrist, basically. I mean, what the is that? I mean, really. But on the other hand, it's like, well, okay, some chefs taking the classes and he's got really excited and he's got the thing and he's got all the weird chemicals and he's got all the things and he's mixing them up and he's making this mad science experiment, and there we go, there it is. Looks like some sort of vegetable roadkill or something, I don't know, but another part of food. It's just like, it's the visual thing. Obviously, we've been going through that with the molecular gastronomy stuff. Sorry, I can't speak. Over the last 10 years, we're coming down the side of that as well, thank goodness, because if I see another pair of tweezers, don't get me started on chefs who have the tweezers in the pocket. It's just like, hello, these are your fingers, you can do that too. Just like tweezers, oh my God. When I see food, I get, I want it to be, I want it to be just like something big and hefty and comforting and just like, I don't want this, you know what I mean? I don't want that. There's that all again coming down the other side. People, it has its place, of course it has its place, it will always have its place. Food is going slightly sideways again. It's like, food is partly science, obviously, in so many ways. We've got the whole, obviously, animal-plant angle. We have the physics and the energy and the matter angle. And the chemical of, putting things together and what they do and how they react to each other also. So you've got all that going on as well. All right, we'll just move past this lovely scene. Big Mama. Big Mama. Just talk a little bit about farming a little bit. This is actually a pig who was part of a competition I did at Couchon 555. We've got another one coming up in a few weeks if you'd like to go see it. We know so many farmers out there, and this is quite a bit of the part that chefs generally don't really know about or really care about too much. I mean, God knows the farm to table has been so abused in the last, probably 30 years, I don't know. It's a horrible phrase because people just abuse it all the time. People put things on their menu, people crap on about, oh, we're farm to table. Most of the time they're not. They're so not. They have not seen a farm, they don't know where that farm is, that everything's done in factories, everything, it's just like, it drives me nuts. So since I've been here and since Feast, we did a whole thing on just like, okay, boom, cross the, there's the line. We're not doing any more of that shit. We're knowing where our food comes from. We're knowing the farmers. We're going to the farms. We're going to go check them out. We're going to go roll around with some chickens in the field, and hang out. Knowing where your food comes from. It's like if you're feeding your children, do you want to just feed them shit, or do you want to feed them the best thing that you can feed them? So this means probably, yes, it's a little bit more expensive. And it's a little bit more effort to go do it. So whether at least all the supermarkets these days, they're doing a lot better with that, and they're bringing on stuff that's from what I call happy animals that are living somewhere that looks like they should be living, so all the pigs are wandering around in the mud and snuffling and like rolling in the muddy waters, and the chickens are just running around in the fields. This is what they should be doing. It's getting better, although there's obviously the market thing, which is, again, gaining some traction in Houston, and people are making a little bit more of an effort. But it's been sort of my mission for the last few years as part of being a chef. I think it's a responsibility to try to connect the farmers to the people and make that work. And I've been working with both sides for many years trying to make this work. It's really hard for these farmers. You know, it's shenanigans on a whole different level of being a chef. I mean, yeah, they're out there every day. They're out there doing their thing every day, brainstorm, you know, you name it. There's fires, there's mudslides, there's, you know, you name it. They deal with it every day. And then, you know, they try to sell their food, and because they're doing it the right way and they're feeding the animals the right food and doing everything properly, obviously it costs more, and then obviously it costs the customer more. And so there has to be some sort of point that somebody's going to take on that responsibility. So the restaurateur can take a hit on it, obviously, or you know, you can you can pass that on to the customer. So you know, your pork belly might be $13 instead of $12, and are people going to freak out? Are they going to go, I'm not paying that? You know, are you kidding? What the hell? What the hell's that? So it's been my mission to try and find that balance, and we've all got to try and find that balance. And the more people that do it, and the more people who, the more people who actually make the effort, it's easier for the farmers. The more volume, and then they can hopefully bring the price down for everybody, and we're all eating better food. And that's just at home, and you know, making an effort in your home as well as your going out to eat, and where you eat, and what you eat, obviously makes a giant difference too. So please, all of you, go do that. Just do that. Science part, we talked a little bit about. Another great weird thing about, this is, I knew when my wife loved me, I had to put this in, making haggis for the Scottish Burns night. I had to go to a rabbit farm because it's illegal to buy lamb's lungs in this country for some bizarre reason. So I went and got rabbit lungs. Me and my wife had been dating a couple of months by that time. And so I had to store them at our house. She didn't flinch. I knew she was the one. That was basically the clincher right there. Yeah, just a quick last few things about food and putting together and if you're doing things at home. The missing dwarfs, I call it. Ratios and layering. Look at that lovely picture right there. There's Mama Pig. See how big that pig is? That's a big pig. The size of that lady. It's one of our crawfish farming friends who does that in Louisiana. Yeah, this is a great photo. This was a restaurant in London I went to back 25 years after I'd worked there, like a couple of years ago for a competition. And I had this Caesar salad. Caesar salad, yeah, whatever, you know. Best freaking Caesar salad that I've ever had before. And there's like 4 ingredients. And so it's just like, okay, it's about how you do it, how you put it together, and good ingredients. And the main thing that most chefs don't get, most chefs, obviously you go to school, and you learn your things, and you may do them a few times, and you do the thing, and then you get your first job, and you're kind of learning, but you know, you don't get everything immediately. Obviously you can't, it's so insane, especially the world of food and the way things are put together, and obviously different ethnicities do things very differently, in very different orderings and very different layerings, so there's so many things to think about. But what you need to concentrate, and even at home, and then the words that most people don't hear is the layering and the ratios. So, you know, obviously if you put too much Caesar dressing on here, it's just going to be swimming, and it's like not very nice. Or you put too much radish, and it's like too bitter, too much going on. That's what we're talking about, ratios. So you have to think about, okay, well I have this amount of this, so that makes I need this amount of this to complement it. And then the layering, again, it's just like, so what they've done here, they've got the lettuce, which is very sort of, not very in your face, a little bit of background stuff. Obviously Caesar dressing, which is really poppy, you've got creaminess, and you've got a little bit of anchovy going on there also. You've got a little bit of salt coming on from the big things of Parmesan. But then, okay, when I make my dressing, I'm going to leave a load of salt out because I've got the anchovy in the dressing. Unless we've got the radish. So the radish is a little watery, but it's a little bitter. So that plays into the deal too. And then you've got your chives, what have they got here? And they're all playing a part. In the great scheme of restaurants and recipes, one of the good things I ever heard was assimilating, putting a dish together. It's like an orchestra kind of a thing. So you've got all these things, all these people or things doing different things. So they're all bringing something to the table. The radish, as I say, this is an easy one to look at. The radish is bringing that bitter and that crunch and that texture. So that's what's going on there. The romaine, yes, you've got that crunch, but you've got that lovely thing, rather plain, but not too crazy going on. The Caesar's giving the creamy, and then the onion gives you that little bit of pungent. So you've got lots and lots of things going on in just one dish. This is a great example because it's like such a simple thing. But if you don't get the layering right of the things that are going on and they're all popping in different directions, and if you don't get the ratios right, it's not going to be very nice. So it's something to think about when you're, even doing things at home. And just briefly, as we're sort of getting to the end of our time a little bit, senses. I mean, obviously the whole senses thing is an enormous part of food too. I mean, what's one of the most wonderful things in the world is just like, getting a loaf of fresh bread. It's like, first thing I do is smell it and break it open, whether I bought it or not, but that excites me greatly. Sorry, going sideways here. Senses, sorry. And visual, I mean, it's everything, food is so like all over the place, so, for me, it needs to pop, and when I see it, I need to get excited. And then there's the smell, and there's the taste, and then there's the texture, and then it's like, there's so much craziness going on and things that are involved with food. It's, as I say, it's a very crazy world that we live in for the restaurants. It is, as I say, a load of drunk pirates trying to hang on for dear life as they move along. Serve people great food, and they're like, what's your worst day? People talk about their worst days of their job. As a chef, you can kill somebody. Yeah, not so cool. It's not like, I'll bring that book back or something. It's like, no, you can make somebody very, very sick, and you can kill them or their children. So there's that whole responsibility side. So when you get the priority angle in there too, it's a little bit like, as long as you've got a good captain steering the ship, I think is the main thing, and hopefully nobody dies. It is this crazy roller coaster, and it's been interesting for me to see it from the creative side today and take things apart a little bit and like go, okay, so what is this crazy thing? This food thing is so in so many worlds, and it's such a bringer together of people, and joy and love and all that stuff. And and I think most chefs are pretty much addicted to the life. It's a bit tricky to get out. I've been doing some consulting recently, and that's been driving me nuts. Sitting at a computer all day. I mean, what is that? What is that? People get paid for that shit, apparently. But so that's been a real eye-opener to me. Hopefully, yes, opening my new place, Atlas Diner, hopefully downtown next month, and I'll get back into my pirate costume, and off we go. So that's all I have for you right now. If you'd like to ask any questions, please do. Yes, madam.
What's your favorite restaurant
Oh.
in Houston, and what's your favorite restaurant in London?
Well, to be honest, one of the best ones in Houston right now, for me, is a place called Nancy's Hustle. Anybody been there? it is very much in my world. It's very sort of, it's rustic, it's fresh, everything's done from scratch, it's very, you can feel the heart and soul. And the biggest one for me right now, perhaps not Houston, I think my favorite restaurant right now in this area is Foreign and Domestic in Austin. Run by a couple of chef friends of ours, Sarah Hurd and Nathan. And that restaurant, you can tell the love. You can tell the effort, you can tell they get up early in the morning, you know, an hour early just to make it better. You know, they put their hearts and souls into every dish, and that's what I'm talking about. And you know, it's a bit kind of like what we did with Feast. You know, I can see that they're tired and stressed, but they're in love. They love what they do. Go check that place out, and I hope you'll get the same sort of vibe on that. London, I haven't been back so much recently, to be honest, so I'm probably a very bad person to answer that question. But I did do the crazy Heston Blumenthal, the dinner place, a couple of years back. That was pretty crazy. I think a little bit hit and miss for me. Some of his stuff was, you know, he's the hit boy on the gastronomy stuff, you know, he's the man. And some of it, again, was just a bit too over the top, bit too, you know, fiddly, silly for, you know, just for the visuals. And some of it was just damn fucking good, you know, it was just really good, and just, it was phenomenal. A bit hit and miss on that, and I think that's what, you know, we've all got to watch out for as chefs, and sometimes I have to bring myself back on that one and go, okay, you know, just don't worry about the visuals too much, just make it taste good, you know, important. Thank you for your question. Sir?
I'm wondering if you can speak to this reaction that I'm having to your talk.
Okay.
A kind of a reaction, one, against this idea of cell phones and media within the context of a restaurant. So I'm thinking of Chef's Table on Netflix,
right,
where it's like this amplification of art as theater and food as theater. Mm. And then also how you spoke about food is destroyed. But when I heard you say that, I heard food is destroyed, but in our bodies it becomes memory,
yes,
it becomes experience.
Yes, exactly.
And so cell phones obviously play into that, where they're kind of an extension of that memory.
Yes, definitely so. Never thought of it like that. But yeah, it's almost like in some ways, as you said, it's like a performance in some ways. It's like going to see a show or something. As you take away all those experiences and memories of this special thing you did, it's not destroyed, but it's in the brain. But yeah, the phone thing, no, absolutely. It really amplified that greatly. And then another thing that I sort of missed a little bit earlier, spend 5 seconds on quickly, is just the way also that can destroy a restaurant. You know, the Yelps of the world, the bad review things, all the sites you can go to, and to be honest, some bloody bad photos too. Now, that'll do you over. I see these photos and they're like, oh my God, it looks like, you know, Blue Lagoon or something. But yeah, it really does, the media thing, the phone thing, I mean, it has helped a lot in some ways. And I used to do it all the time at Feast, you know, photos I used to post, and you know, it's free advertising, you know, and it's a wonderful thing for that. But on the other hand, it can be a double-edged sword. Like, you know, I think the guy at Hubcat Grill who got into it with somebody about, I can't even remember what it, perhaps Catherine remembers, but it was some crazy shit. And he got into it with a customer online, and they just went, you know, head for head for that for like days, and then it got into like the national news, and then it's just like, but where's the point of like who's right? I mean, I don't particularly think the customer's always right. I don't think so. There's some arseholes out there too, you know. And, you know, perhaps I messed up for a reason, or, you know, I get it so many different ways. But, yeah, sometimes it works for you and against you. Anything else? Yes, sure.
Where can we, as the general public, go to buy really good local meat?
I mean, the East Side Market does a lot of good local people doing good local things. If you want a good variety, they're there every Saturday morning, run by Urban Harvest. And so there's a great, wonderful array of, you know, foods and plants and vegetables and things to sell and eggs and all that sort of stuff. So that's a really, really good start, I think, if you want to do that. There are a load of farmers out there that do sort of CSA things, who, you know, come into town once a week, you buy a, you know, $20 and you get a box of stuff, which I think is great. Sometimes it, you know, gets a little repetitive. There are a lot of farmers that do butcher their own animals, like my friend at Whitehurst Heritage up in Brenham, and, you know, he vacuum packs them and freezes them, and there's nothing wrong with that. They're going to be just happy on the other side. And so you can get local, you know, big chunks of meat from local animals. And, you know, and the thing to remember, I was saying, you know, if you guys can get out there and, like, buy this stuff, talk to the farmers, and, you know, they love talking about their life. They have a wonderful life or a tough life, and they would love to talk, you to go to their farm and touch their animals. They want you to go and understand it. And all of them, pretty much all the ones we did the show on, all the ones I know, none of them started as farmers. They did it because they wanted to do it. They did it because their son had an allergy. They did it because they took a course on pesticides and then went, F that. You know, our lady down in Needville makes the goat pots. That was her thing. She took a course on fertilizer and then was like, I'm just going to go do a farm. And now she makes the most amazing goat pots in the universe. She's there on Saturday mornings at Easter. Go to see her. She's a lovely, lovely lady.
Thanks so much for your talk. I'm wondering if you could compare how you approach creating one dish or one plate to putting together a menu.
I'm in the stages of testing right now for Atlas, and it's brutal. And I appreciate testing is very important. But yes, I mean obviously, and then okay, so you know you do it at home. You're having dinner. You're like going to have like you know roast chickens and potatoes and parsnips, because I know you all love parsnips. And you know you're thinking about this, that, and the other, and you do that one thing, and you're like, woo, yeah, done it, yes, fantastic. So think about that, and then think about like, well, perhaps you have 20 different things on the menu. So you know, creating the menu and testing everything, and then bring it in, making sure everything's fresh, and and then you've got to think about, well, you know, I don't want to throw this away because I've got this left over and this is not selling, and this is, you know, so you have to like think about cross-utilization of like, okay, well, I've got chicken on there, I've got chicken on here, that's great, but, you know, it'll shift the thing a little bit more. And then you've got the whole crazy thing about doing it under battle conditions, as I say, on the line, you know, on the kitchen line on a Friday night. And you could put something on the menu as a head chef that completely screws the whole kitchen. I mean, you know, and you've only just got to put one sort of monkey wrench in the thing, and the whole thing can go down. I mean, that's the thing. It's just, as I said, everybody's just hanging on, seeing if they're going to get through this service. And then you've got to think, you know, at home and stuff. Hopefully, you know, you're warming your plates and you're making sure everything's at temperature for your family, and hopefully that's, you know, perhaps family style, or you do individual plates. But then think of that on a kitchen level. So I got like a table of 10, all different things. So 10 different things, and perhaps you're talking, you know, 30 sides in different shapes, forms, garnishes. And so it's just it's such a crazy lunatic array of things that you have to think about. And then, yeah, can you actually execute it under battle conditions, and everything work like clockwork, and then everything, all these 10 dishes, all have to come to the pass at the same time. All absolutely perfect in every way, shape, or form. Perfect with their heated bowls, perfect with their garnishes. Don't put the garnish on too early because it'll wilt. You know, all these things, it's such a, yeah, it's a crazy chess game in a lot of ways. But yeah, doing a menu, and then, you know, the actual financial and everything else side of it, of menu mixes also, of like, you know, and you want to cover the bases. So, you know, have a really good vegetarian item on there. You know, you've got to cover the chicken, you've got to cover the fish, you've got to do this, you've got to do that. And so, yeah, there's so many things to think about. It's stressing me out now. I've got to go home and do that. I'm going to go do that tonight when I get home. But thank you. Yes, madam.
Did you ever eat in the Horn of Plenty, which is right over it's in Devon, and it was the first restaurant that was a Michelin-starred restaurant.
All right. What sort of years? When was that?
Let's see. That was in the early 70s.
Oh, well,
And it was-
too young for that.
Okay.
Ah,
my age.
no, I've heard of it. I'll look it up actually. I've heard of it, but
It was an amazing restaurant.
yeah, it's nice when you get those places that just, what?
Yeah.
Boom, you remember it today.
I still remember.
Stuart, I'm
I
sure
still
you remember some of those dishes and some of those experiences you had that it's just like, boom.
Fish right from the Tamar.
Yeah, yeah. My mother lives in Totnes right now in Devon, just down the road. So yeah, it's a beautiful place.
When you're thinking about opening a new restaurant,
Don't do it.
I was just wondering, do you start with the concept, or how do you start thinking about a concept?
Ooh, that's a good one. You definitely, yeah. I mean, I suppose concept is the very first thing, and that beast may change and meander and wander a little bit through the process. And you know, there's so many factors. And then another big thing about what's happened in the last few years, that people have just been opening ridiculously big restaurants. Just like you just need to keep things small. So there you go. Yeah, it's a crazy one. Then there's so many processes of like, okay, so where is it going to be? What size is it going to be? What's the demographic? Who are my customers? Are they going to be wandering through it, coming by foot? Are they coming by car? Is there parking? It's the big one, obviously. What time of day are people in and around that area of town? And so, yeah, there's so many things to think about. But yeah, concept and another great, silly one that quite a lot of chefs and restaurateurs do sometimes. It's just like they don't do what they know. They kind of go, ooh, it'd be cool to do that. Even if they've never cooked it before in their life, I'm like, oh yeah, that would be fun. It's like, no, it probably wouldn't be fun. But yeah, it's as I say, it's a crazy crapshoot opening a restaurant, and people do think you're all rolling around in money, but the realities of it, it's like the percentage profit. If you're doing well, you might be getting 15-20% if you're doing really well and working your ass off. And then, well, what do you do? It's a hurricane. What do you do if you have to close down? What if they're digging up the road down? That's what used to happen all the time at feasts. They're digging up the road and they cut the water off. This is like, well, we can't legally open. We don't have hot water. We don't have. And it's just so it's general shenanigans. And your staff going to jail and all that all the fun stuff. You'll get to that. I actually had to go to jail to get a sticky toffee pudding recipe from one of my workers. Yeah, that was a proud moment of mine. But not the recipe, he changed it. Yeah.
I think on that note, we best end. But please join me in thanking Richard very much for